Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, people of all ages, welcome back to the Sticky Floors podcast. I am one of your hosts, CJ. I am joined by the illustrious Mr. Will, and we are back in 2025, ready to talk about some movies. So hopefully, everybody has enjoyed their New Year's. Hopefully, people didn't wake up with hangovers or anything like that, or with some bad mistakes that are going to follow you for the rest of the year. Hopefully, hopefully none of that happened. You enjoyed yourself. You had a good time. You had a safe time, and now you're here listening and watching us. Mr. Will, how was your New Year's, man? How'd you ring in the New Year?
Actually, with family and friends, there was like a little get together. So I'm definitely thankful and appreciative of that. People were in good spirits, good health, so that was good, man. What about you?
Good stuff, man. The safe way, man. In the
Yeah,
house,
yeah,
watching Ryan Seacrest
yeah.
and a bunch of performances by people I'd never heard of before, but discovered some new talent. And I was glad that I was not in Times Square because it looked like it was just raining the whole time, cold
Yeah,
rain on everybody. So I was glad to be in my nice warm home watching it, watching that myself, man.
I do think that's something everybody should do at least once in their lives.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I have a funny story about that, but we could talk about that later on another
yeah,
date.
that's good stuff. Yeah, I do think so. It's one of those moments that you always remember. I'm
Yeah,
sure, like from doing it. Yeah, dig that. I've been there many times, but never on New Year's. So
really? Okay.
yeah, so maybe I'll do that at some point, man.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that you have to really be present in the moment to appreciate everything in its fullness. There's this thing I read, something to the effect of like, oh, there's like a bunch of major cities that not a vast majority of people have gone to in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think it was like Houston or Dallas, some city in Texas, obviously New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Miami, like the major joints. But then like a couple of other like cities that like even though they're capitals, they haven't. And then
Mm-hmm.
next to that was something to the effect of major events that you have to visit or whatever
Yeah.
have you. And this was one of them. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, you know what? This is one of those things that you really have to go and see for yourself.
Yeah. Everybody that's done it has always spoken highly of it. It's like going to Disney World.
Yeah, man.
It's like
You see those.
everyone who's been there has always said, yeah, no, it was great. I didn't think it was going to be, but it was.
Yeah, yeah. You expect chaos and pandemonium, but no, it's one of those things where you get to see the fullness of human emotions, kind of
There it is.
similar to this movie we're about to get into.
There it is, man. A good segue. Good segue into the film, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, so this month we are doing Christopher Nolan films.
Yes,
So
sir.
Christopher Nolan, for those, I'm sure if you're a movie watcher, you've probably seen one of Christopher Nolan's films.
Hmm.
We got four we're going to cover over the course of this next month. This is also not our first time doing a Christopher Nolan film. We actually did Oppenheimer in episode 4. So
Hmm.
if you want to kind of go back and see like what our thoughts were on that film, which I think we both thought was fantastic.
Yes.
That was when we covered it then. Tonight we're going to be talking about Memento. However, before we get to that, just want to let everybody know about a competition that we're going to be
Mm.
holding over this next month, courtesy of our partnership with one of our day one supporters, Mr. Kasim George. So, Kasim is a photographer. He does like a lot of photography for people, headshots, family shots, really artistic pieces as well.
Very well done.
And thank you. And he's agreed to partner with us on a little competition whereby if for the next month from January 5th to January 31st, any new subscriber to the show who subscribes in that time period and then likes one of our videos will be entered into a contest where if you win, you will have the option to receive a free photo shoot with Mr. Kasim George. His IG handle is KIG Photos. So check it out if you want to get a chance to look at some of his work. It's very good stuff. And I've
Yeah, it
actually
is.
been wanting to work with him for a while myself. But anyone who's ever done a photo shoot knows that it can be very costly and expensive. So someone willing to do that for free is a really good gift. And it only costs you a subscribe and a like on a video.
Think about
Um,
that.
Yeah, think about that, right? It's a good offer. We will at the end of the month we will put all of the new subscribers into a raffle. We'll choose a winner. We'll connect you with Mr. George, and you will be able to get the photo shoot. Now, the only caveat is that it has the photo shoot will be done in the Prince George's County, Maryland area. So for the person that gets selected, you'll get the address of the studio and you'll be able to go. But just so you know that you would have to travel there to be able to see it. So hopefully that incentivizes some people to like and subscribe and share, and then you get a chance to get a free photo shoot.
Yeah, I think the thing that's dope about that too, aside from Cassim agreeing to participate and lend his support, is one, he has some very, very high level work. He has a great eye. There
Yeah.
was one piece that I shared with CJ that I was like, "Yo, this is exquisite, man!
Yeah, I
Like this
said
is
fire. Yeah, he said it's
yeah,
fire. Yeah,
this joint is dope." But even with that being said, you could also make this a trip for you and your loved ones or your family or whomever you're coming with. Like it could be a mini vacation, if you will, or even a full out one. There's plenty of things to see in that area itself. So
absolutely.
definitely encourage people to like, subscribe, obviously, but definitely engage with this opportunity because, like CJ said, these things can be quite expensive for all the
Absolutely.
potential actors and actresses and models. This is a great opportunity to get some headshots.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. Yep. Get something that you can put on your wall behind your back, like the picture in Belly. Like
Yeah.
get the get the Belly picture like that. So anyway, yeah, man. So look, so that's what the competition is. Once again, January 5th to January 31st. Check it out. Just subscribe to the channel and like one of our videos that are produced during this month. And we'll keep mentioning this on the future shows until we get to the end of the month.
Yes, sir.
So, with that said, man, let's kick it over to Mr. Will so we can get into the Memento.
Yeah, man. Before we really get into this discussion, one thing I definitely would like to bring to the forefront is it's a new year, which means it's a new opportunity to discover a new you or a new aspect of yourself. So I encourage everybody to do a little bit of introspection. Uh, I also would like to welcome all the new births out there, all the New Year's Eve, New Year Day babies that have come forth, and wishing nothing but the best, hope, peace, prosperity, not just because it's a new year, but it's a recognition, a recognition of all you've been through and to get to this point.
Mm-hmm.
My dad once said something to me to the effect of like, you should wear your gray hair with like a badge of honor because most people
Mm-hmm.
don't get to experience that.
True
Um,
indeed.
but with that being said, I also would like to offer my sincere condolences to those who have transitioned and are no longer in the physical essence with us. So, to their loved ones, family, friends, associates, admirers, fans, I offer you a very dear, heartfelt condolence offering of sympathy and support.
Good stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I know it's been a trying year for a lot of people, so my heart goes out to them. And with that said, let's get into a movie that also discusses a little bit of tragedy and tragic figures who are trying their best to find their way. As my man CJ told me, we're all doing the best that we can with the tools that we have. So, Memento, directed by Christopher Nolan, is a thought provoking neo noir psychological thriller film that keeps viewers on the edge of their seats, weaving a suspenseful and engaging narrative that makes the viewer ruminate preconceived notions from multiple perspectives and gives a glimpse into the neurology of memory. The story follows Leonard Shelby, portrayed by Guy Pearce, as he embarks on a quest for vengeance against those who have wronged him. Leonard's life is a chaotic puzzle due to the anterograde amnesia that renders him unable to perform new memories. Despite his meticulously usage of photographs, handwritten notes, and tattoos to piece together the fragments of his existence and track down his wife's killer. As Leonard convinces himself that discipline and conditioning will lead to justice, the movie unravels a dark, sinister revelation. Viewers discover that Leonard is ensnared in a self-imposed cycle of chasing phantoms and an endless loop he himself perpetuates through forgotten resolutions.
There it is, man. Yeah. So that's Memento in a nutshell. Like you said, the one of the words that you said that had jumped out to me was the word like puzzle,
Mm-hmm.
because in many ways this movie is like that. I
Yeah.
remember seeing it I didn't see it in movie theaters, but I
Mhm,
saw it on like probably like video or something. And I just remember thinking like, wow, this movie is amazing because of like how much it's like you have to think about it so much. Like
mhm.
what came first, what came next, what's after it. And it's funny, when we were getting ready for the show, it reminded me a lot of like Pulp Fiction. And I know that
Mm,
you have like an affinity for movies that are kind of like a little disjointed
mhm.
and kind of makes you as the audience try to put it together.
Yeah, well, I think it's because one, it allows you to not only play detective,
Yeah.
but it's also one of those types of films that, like, if you like the gothic type, who done it
Yeah, definitely
mystery,
the murder mystery joint. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
like that also helps to play in it. Like I like Batman, I like Sherlock Holmes, so things like
Hmm.
that get you into that vein. And I think this movie, it's thought provoking in the sense of what would you do if you literally could not form a
Oh
memory,
man.
let
Yeah.
alone a new one, like just any memory. You have no recollection of who you are, and what does it mean to be, whoever you are.
Yeah.
How do you describe yourself?
Yeah. It's definitely an identity
Hmm.
component to it as well. And right from the beginning, I mean, Christopher Nolan, he does this thing with this movie, and I think he does it with a couple where he makes movies that are so contextual,
Hmm.
so layered that they almost demand you watching them more than once to really catch all of the notes of it. And he doesn't, sometimes it reminds me a little bit of like like M. Night Shyamalan will do movies where at
Mm,
the end there's always a twist. And then when you go back to the twist, you kind of understand all the things.
yeah,
Nolan's movies don't give you that, but they are these very contextualized like mysteries.
yeah.
And so often things that look like they're one way are
Hmm.
actually something different. And like things that happen in the first 20 minutes get explained in like the last 40
Yeah.
minutes. And it's like you see that with Interstellar,
Hmm.
you see that with Inception, and you see that with Memento as well.
Yeah, I love how, like, from start to finish, everything has a valid correlation to the thing that either preceded it
Yeah.
or that transpires afterwards. Because it allows you to sit there and you contemplate certain things,
Hmm.
from an existential position. But at the same time, if you're just a movie goer and a movie buff, you're like, oh, so this person, that was his motivations, and she came in at this specific time because of X, Y, and Z. Like, it allows you to really stay engaged in the movie. I love that about him.
Yeah, and it also makes it like very rewatchable
Oh
as
yeah,
well. So
yeah.
it's like, I watched this interview with Christopher Nolan. He was saying how, the modern moviegoer experience is different in some ways because once a movie is in your house, like you
Mhm.
really watch it as many times as you want to. And like that rewatchable ability, he said that he's very intentional about trying to make it where you can sort of find different things in the movie the more that you watch it. And even
Yeah,
for a movie
yeah,
like Memento, it's like you can go to YouTube. There's hundreds of videos
yeah,
made about
yeah.
what's really going on. Is Teddy who Teddy says he is?
Mhm.
What's Lenny do? Like what happened to Lenny's wife? All of that is there because of how layered it is.
Yeah, that's another dope aspect that you just brought up. Um, if you watch it on Amazon Prime, like I did, it'll have like
Yeah. So
little
did I. Yep.
clips underneath it and such that'll say like, "Hell, this person is an actor from here," or they changed their name,
Hmm.
and how just those little things tie into the movie because Nolan may have borrowed certain aspects from those actors and actresses, real life that brought it to like a much more poignant position. I think the other thing too that is really dope about what you mentioned as far as like the prosperity of the movie itself and the watching experience is that you could really do a deep dive. Like there were things that you had discussed in your notes and in the pre-production meeting that I was not totally aware of. Like I didn't understand. Well, scratch it. I can't say understand. I wasn't made aware that with respect to this movie, that one, his brother wrote the original.
Yeah.
Two, that there was a website. Three, that with the website, there's some discussions about this being a mental asylum or whatever have you.
Yeah.
And like it's just so, like you mentioned, it's just so layered and complex that the ability for us to be even talking about this in 2025
It's
versus when this
amazing.
it's crazy.
25 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like this is, and that's the other part too. I didn't realize that this movie is 25 years old.
Yeah, it stands the test of time, like the
Yeah,
story itself. And I think that gets into what you were saying about the noir aspect of it.
yeah,
Like noir automatically kind of connotes something that's timeless in
yes,
a way. And this film, it stands up. Like
Yeah.
even watching it 2025, you contextualize it into that time and it works. And
Hmm.
I've watched this movie enough times to try to figure out if there's a flaw in it,
Yeah.
and you can't find it because
No.
it just narratively makes sense.
Well, that's the other thing too, man. Like everything is so cohesive, and
Hmm.
seamless. Like it makes rational sense why the depictions of the characters are the way they are, their
Yeah.
traits, their personalities, their flaws, the pros and the cons as to the choices they make. Everything fits. Like, oh, so he's running towards the guy that's shooting at him,
Oh,
and
that's a funny scene. Yeah. Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
no, wait, he's running away from the
No.
guy that's shooting at. You know what I mean? Like just
Yeah.
certain things like that. It's like, well, what would you do if you were discombobulated and you have no sense of like time or space or your interactions or your motivations? Like you just wake up. I don't seem drunk, he says.
Oh yeah. He
Like just
checks the jacket
yeah,
to smell himself.
you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like just certain things are like wow, or certain questions that are proposed. Like Teddy says to him, so you just drive a Jaguar, huh? You just wake
Oh
up with tailored
yeah.
suits and stuff. Like that's what you do. Like so
Yeah.
that part is just a mere example as far as what you can expect in this movie.
Yeah, and it's so many clues that are there
Hmm.
that you don't, because even the suit, like the suit is nice, but it always looks a little too big for him.
Yes,
And you
yes,
went and like at the end you figure out, oh, because you took Jimmy's suit,
yeah.
that's why. But it's like you don't really kind of figure that out. You know what I mean? Like it's just it's well done. And then like as you said before, the idea of like Lenny trying to reconstruct his reality through the use of pictures and
Mhm.
tattoos and notes is like it's so much about someone trying so hard to be normal
Yeah.
and trying so hard to create order out of a life that could easily spin out of control, that it just makes you automatically identify with the character.
I think you touched upon something though, which was a brilliant segue. I'm not sure if you did it intentional or not, but I guess that's what brilliance is. Um, the fact that, and I'm going to read a quote. Teddy says to him, "You lie to yourself to be happy. We all
Mm,
do it."
yep.
So, he from wearing the suit that he thinks is his to his preference of driving the Jaguar, where he tells Teddy, like, "No, we're going to take my car." Technically, buddy, it's not your
It's
car.
not your car, yeah.
Yeah, so it doesn't really matter how you get to where you're going, but he has ingrained this false narrative into his very essence. Like, this is who I am. This is my motivations. I'm defined by this.
Yeah.
It makes for a very compelling character, as you mentioned in the beginning.
Yeah, and then he's also got this sort of hierarchy within his mind because he has Sammy Jenkins in his head,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, Sammy didn't have a system. Sammy wasn't as organized as I am. And
Mm-hmm.
then like, like he reminds people like, I was a claims adjuster. I got used to identifying when people were lying.
Yeah.
And yet everybody is lying to him
Him.
in this movie all the time.
It's layers of it's so ironic. Like there's so many layers of the satire and
Mhm.
everything seems to be at his expense where
Yeah.
he's sitting there telling you like, hey, look, despite me having this inability, this disorder, I'm
Hmm.
still able to function as a normal quote unquote human
Yeah.
being. And what does that really mean? Like this movie, I think, really makes you ask yourself some hard questions. Forget the aspect of like why he's doing this. He wants to seek retribution for his deceased wife. You mean to tell me that the cops aren't aware of any of this? And then he answers the question for you. No, no, no. They just didn't believe me. I went to
Yeah.
the police, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Because a rational person would be like, yo, your wife is dead.
Yeah.
She was murdered. They found you next to her body. Like, you don't think this is newsworthy? You don't think that you're going to go to trial or an investigation? It's just so crazy how this all develops.
Yeah, and there's also this notion of, and I think this is like one of the strongest parts of it. You leave the film and you still can question parts of it,
Yeah.
right? Like one of the things that I it's been a while since I watched this, but it was like even the narrative of, okay, your wife was raped and murdered, right? Well, actually, his wife survived it.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, he killed his wife, right?
Yeah.
Actually, with the insulin dosages, right?
Yeah.
All of that, but it's like then you question like, well, is Sammy Jenkins real or not? Like, is that like even all of those parts? There's just so many questions about it. Like when did he come into contact with Teddy?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like did like you know what Teddy is saying, but even Teddy is like, do you trust him? You know, like
Yeah.
he's the dude who tried to do Morpheus in.
And that's my point. Like you go to you go to Joe. I'll probably butcher his last name, so we'll just say Joe P. And you think
I
of,
think it's like Pontielona.
I'm not even
All
going to
right, I
try.
messed it up too.
But when you see him, whether it be him being not Foggy Nelson, Ben Urich in Daredevil with Ben Affleck,
Yes.
like
Mm-hmm.
he always plays these characters that like there's a sliminess to them or an
Mm-hmm.
element that it makes you uncomfortable in interacting with them. So you bring that into this movie as well. Like, oh, he always plays
Yeah.
the questionable dude. So
Yeah.
this is another questionable role. And then on the
Yes.
Polaroid it says, "Don't believe his lies," and you're like, well, there's got to be a reason. And you're
Right.
still focused on being in the mind of the main character of Guy Pearce's Leonard Shelby, that you don't even bother to contemplate for 1 second that it could be Lenny that's telling all the lies, or that has it misconstrued or has it backwards.
Right. I mean, that's a brilliant point too, because that is the intention of
Mm-hmm.
how Nolan set the film up. He
Yeah.
wants you to be not only like watching Lenny's story, but he wants you to think about the story as the
Yeah.
way that Lenny is. So, like you said, Teddy don't believe his lies. It's on the
Yeah.
back of it, right? And you believe that because somehow part of it is because I think like as an audience, you always remember that dude as Cypher from the Warp. Like
Yeah.
that's like his character.
MO, man.
Right. But then it's like also you watch this and you're thinking, well, Leonard seems like a nice guy. You know, he seems like he's like on this righteous quest. So why wouldn't I trust
Mm-hmm.
what he's saying, especially when he's affirming constantly that I have a system and my system is what makes it work. And that's how I'm able to be successful and all these things. So it's a really good journey that they go on in the film.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that he is the victim in all of this. I
Yeah.
mean, he has a traumatic brain injury
Yep.
resulting in a disorder that, quite frankly, would leave anyone handicapped for the rest of their life. And I don't mean
Absolutely.
just the physical aspect. I mean like a broken shell of themselves, contemplating what can they do, where can they go.
Yeah.
Something as simple as, can they go out and get something to eat without being lost and wondering if they can get back home. Kind of like
Yeah.
dementia and amnesia and
Alzheimer's. Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
some of these concussions protocols that NFL players and even boxers and MMA fighters find themselves in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the condition like interior grade memory loss,
Mm-hmm.
which is qualified as a form of amnesia.
Yeah,
So I looked it up and I'm like, is this true? And it's like, yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
real. It's a
yeah.
real condition, right? So even the thoughtfulness of putting that into it. And, you know, there's a line where he says, he was talking about his wife and he was saying, like, I can't remember to forget you. I mean,
Mm.
that's just such a powerful thought. Like how
Yeah,
much embedded in this movie is also, like you said in the beginning, this question of like identity and how much of your identity is wrapped up in your memories and wrapped up in like what you tell yourself about what happened and who you are and all those things.
yeah. And just to go back too, like I want the audience to understand, like Joe Pantoliano, if I'm even
That was
pronouncing it
good.
right.
No, that was good. I like no gold star for that one.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Some of the movies that he's been in have been Risky Business,
Yep.
Eddie and the Cruisers, The Goonies. If you think about those dudes and La Bamba, like all those guys, they weren't necessarily the best of the best. Like you're looking at individuals who are
Yeah.
like, eh. So I think it just doubles down on the aspect of not believing everything you see and hear. I
Yeah.
forget the old adage. What is it? Believe nothing of what you hear and half of what you see.
Or it might be the other way. It might be believe nothing you see and half of what you hear. It might be that. Yeah.
Yeah, but even with that in mind, it also makes me think of how they always talk about eyewitness testimony isn't as
Yes.
reassuring or foolproof or 100% as you would believe, because look, sometimes the color may have been something else, person's height may have been this, their stature may have been X. Like you never really know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's so, and even references that, like in the
Yeah.
movie, like Lenny actually even says that, and it's true. I mean, that's why it's so hard when situations like that happen because you never know like how stress impacts someone.
No.
And as you said, Leonard has experienced tremendous stress,
Yes.
right? And now he's trying to like he's trying to like take ownership of his life and he's trying to control it. Unfortunately, he's like in the snake pit of human beings where everyone is trying to manipulate him or take advantage of him in some kind of way.
And you know, the sad part about it is there's this British type of game or whatever, and it's called Steal or Share. So essentially, you know, you have two people sitting opposite of each other, whatever have you, and you know, the audience is obviously there giving their input, but the main theme is, hey, we can get $50,000, let's just say, to use a round number. And we can either split that in half and we both walk away with $25,000, or I could steal it, or you could steal it from me if I say I'm going to share the money, whatever have you. And you know, the one clip I've seen, you know, you have this one lady and she's like, you know, I've been blessed by the church who's helped me out, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm going to make a charitable donation. I'm going to give them half of my whatever. And lady sitting across from her is like, wow, that's so great. Just know that the two previous episodes, I stole the money. And she's talking about all this stuff about all the good she's going to do and this, that, and the third. And the other lady is like, yeah, just also remember, like, you know, I think stealing money is good because, you know, we're on a game show to, you know, get as much money as we can. Now, the lady opposite of her, and this goes to the movie, I'll make the parallel real quick. This goes to human nature. You know, you have the vindictive bartender in Carrie-Anne Moss, who is awesome in this, especially that steam ceiling joint where she gets on him and starts calling him all types of names. And then she
gets him to hit her. Yeah. And then goes outside in the car.
And she did it intentionally. It hit him with the coup de grace and was like, you wouldn't even remember getting angry with me even after this. Yeah. And she calls him all types of names and leaves. I say that to say, you know, here's somebody, she ends up sleeping with him too. That's the that's the crazy part. He writes on the photo, you know, look, she's willing to help you out of pity because somebody close to her.
She lost someone too. Yeah.
So you're dealing with that tugging of the heartstrings, whatever have you. Like, oh, he's able to rebuild his life again. He's able to have a romantic interest and this, that, and the third. On the other side, we've been talking about Teddy, who is supposed to be a police officer. And what is their montage? Protect and serve. Well, he's only protecting himself and serving his own interests. He's not here to help Teddy as some benevolent benefactor. No, it's quite the opposite, where he's intentionally put him in the harm's way. And my hot take, if you will, even though I don't really like the phrases, Leonard's a serial killer. Like,
he might be, right?
Like, this dude.
Yeah. Because you don't know how many people he's killed. You don't know how many John G's he's found.
You know he's killed at least 2 people.
At least 2, right?
And by the end of the movie, you know he's killed at least 2 people, maybe 3. Yeah. No.
3.
He's killed 3, maybe 4 or more. He killed the original John G. He killed Teddy, and he killed Jimmy.
Jimmy, yeah, so, Natalie's man, yeah.
And we don't even fully know what happens with what's the guy's name that chases him with the gun? Dodd. Yeah. You don't even know what really happens with him either. I mean, you could argue that he offed him too.
Yeah. So that's gonna get into one of the questions I have. So that's good. All right. Let's get to the things that we liked. I know this is, you know, no, we're not bearing the lead here. This is a movie we both really liked, and I've never talked to anybody who didn't like Memento. I've never heard anybody see it and be like, man, that was trash. Like, nobody says that, man. But a couple things, right mind. Right? A couple of things that I know. I know we have a couple of things that overlap, but one of the things, and we talked about a little bit, is I think the way Guy Pearce plays the Lenny character is so well done because he's not that you feel pity for the character, because he doesn't allow you to, but it's almost like you're impressed with how empowered he's become. Yeah. Right. You're impressed that he's trying to like move beyond this limitation. Right. And he's so like affable, even when like people are trying to screw him, like the hotel manager who rented him 2 rooms, and like he catches him in the act, but he doesn't get angry, you know, or like he just like, oh, so you're trying to rip me off, you know, could you give me keys?
And he's like, at least I was upfront about it.
Right. Yeah. And or like the all the lies he catches Teddy in, like all the time, but he doesn't react like angrily towards him. You know, like he just plays the character so well that I think it makes you as the audience like wonder, like, well, is he a bad person, or like, you know, like what's his real responsibility in this? So that's one thing. And then, you know, like as we said from the beginning, the complex nature of just the storytelling of the film and having it be out of order, and then like you as the audience trying to put it back into order, is just and a great point. And as you said before, the Christopher Nolan actually made a website, and it's all. I actually tried to find it, but it's been taken down now. But and like he's actually like now made it where apparently on the DVDs you could see it like in a chronological order. So you could see the movie and really see what happened. But just like the fact that like that a level of care and time into the storytelling and narrative, it just leaps out to me as things like I really appreciate it.
It's dope. You touched upon a couple of things. The chronological order of things. One is in black and white, the other is in color. So it gives you this splinted, fragmented sense as far as like what his emotions are, but what is actually transpiring simultaneously. I think that helps tremendously. It's very creative. It's artistically done. It's a novel idea because not many people are able to successfully pull that off. So the way that he weaves this narrative amongst that backdrop, that does a lot for me. You mentioned Guy Pearce. Man, he was outstanding in this role.
Really
And
is.
Amazon had mentioned all the people ranging from Brad Pitt being potentially cast for this. And I couldn't see anybody else. I mean, even Aaron Eckhart, I couldn't see anybody else but Guy Pearce in this. And to know that it was like some conniving, weaseling, all in his emotions executive that was like, I'm never going to work with Guy Pearce, and that's the reason why he hasn't done any other movies with Christopher Nolan. It robs the viewer. I mean, like you always, what do you call it, berserker? Like, yo, just take my this is what I want to see. I want to see more movies like this with them teaming up. Like they've even gone so far as to say like they could have been the Batman and Robin dynamic duo that we've been craving for decades. I think the other thing about this movie that I really liked is Carrie-Anne Moss's performance. I
shout out to Trinity, man.
Yeah.
Trinity and Cypher in the same movie, man.
And the crazy thing about it is it really didn't dawn on me like, oh, Memento was after The Matrix. It wasn't vice versa. And I think that's dope. I also like the fact that Mark Boone Jr. who is also in a bunch of Christopher Nolan movies, but that's because that's Christopher Nolan's homeboys. They're hooking him up with a paycheck. That joint is dope. I really can appreciate that. You're giving your man the hookup, you know what I mean? So as long as I got a job, you got a job.
Good stuff.
Yeah. And I think the thing too about the way that this is a topic that isn't discussed, and that is like, how do you perceive yourself when you don't know who you are? Like, would you tell yourself your name is Lenny, but is your name Lenny? It makes you question just from a name to what it is your profession is. Is he really a claims adjuster? Is he really an investigator? Did he believe? Is he telling, a story about someone else, or is this his own autobiographical account as to what transpired and such? And then last but not least, just the sense that he's fragmented, not just his memories, but as a person. How do you justify killing other people because you had someone close to you, near and dear, that was killed? If a life is valuable, regardless of whose life it is, how can you lay claim to doing that to other people's? Because as you see, Carrie-Anne Moss is distraught that Jimmy is gone and hasn't come back. And she obviously meant something to him, and he obviously meant something to her. Now you've cast her in the same position that you find yourself in.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, like that just way that they mess with the perception of like what happens and the identity of it. It's so well done, and it's so well done that even like you were saying, the having the movie be out of order. Yeah, it kind of reminds you of Pulp Fiction, but you don't watch it and say, "Oh, he's trying to bite Quentin Tarantino," because that's how well it's done. It also, there's a show. I don't know if you ever saw this, but years ago there used to be a show on Showtime called The Affair, right? And The Affair was a show where it would be a 1 hour show.
Is it the two couples where they?
Where they have an affair. It's really direct about what it is. It's about. But what's amazing about it is that what they would do is the first 30 minutes would be from the perspective of the character.
Yeah.
And then the second 30 minutes would be perspective from the opposite character. But you would see them going through the same situation.
Yeah.
And see how they're remembering it differently.
Yeah.
Like what happened. And this movie is like
definitely
really tapped into like that idea of like, yeah, this is what happened, but did you remember it the way that it actually happened?
Right. I think the thing too is that like borrowing from what you're discussing is that that old phrase of there's three things: your version, her version, or his version, and then there's
And
the
the
truth.
truth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
it's taken so many legs that people even say like your version of the truth or your truth, like some
Mm-hmm.
type of variant, and it's like
Yeah.
no, there's just the truth.
Yeah. Yep.
There-
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
it's so interesting how this movie was so way ahead of its time and
Mhm.
how influential it is without any like real recognition and acknowledgement.
Yeah, I mean that's why it stands the test of time. That's why I mean this is Christopher Nolan's second film, right,
Yeah,
that he made,
think about
and it's
that.
like it's one of the main ones that you think about, and
Yeah.
and that's no knock to him because, like you said, there's Interstellar and there's Inception and there's Tenet and
Mhm.
there's The Dark Knight, which is like we'll get to that one day. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna spend a lot of time with that. All right, so hate wise, man, just things we didn't like. So I'm nitpicking, like, and
Mhm.
I'm putting that disclaimer on it. I wish that I would have. I wish there was a way to know kind of how long his short term memory worked.
Mhm.
Like, what's the boundary? Like, is it like he forgets 5 minutes after it happens? Like, how long does it take you to
Yeah.
form a memory? Because that scene that you talked about with Carrie-Anne Moss, when he's talking with the character Natalie, like Natalie says all those things to
Yeah.
him. She takes all the pens, so she knows that he won't be able to write anything
Mhm.
down. Then she curses him out, makes him hit her, go sit in the
Shiesty.
car, and you see him looking at her in the car, like yeah, like almost like she's counting down. And then she
Mhm.
goes in and he forgets. And
It's
it's like that's the best instance of him not remember, like him not having the short term memory. But it's like, how much was that? Was it 5 minutes? Like, how does he hold on to the idea long enough to actually do anything?
you know
So
how
that was just something that it's great for the story, but it's always something that I wish I knew more definitively.
that joint is so conniving though because the parallel is for the quote unquote average person where they're like, man, she remembers stuff from like 10 years ago at 11:04 what I did, but she can't remember X, Y, and Z. Like that joint struck a nerve with me because I'm like, I may not have been that guy whose partner has like been like, hey babe, can I get a piece of your sandwich, or can I get some nuggets? Like that's never happened to me, thank God.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's never been on some like, yo, I'm gonna get something to eat, why don't you? But I have a story that's the equivalent of it, and it only happened to me once. And
Hmm.
now when he did that and she did that, I was like, I'm not justifying him putting his hands on her, but I could see how he got to that point where he is the epitome of the fragility of human existence and the human psyche.
Hmm.
And I think anyone can be pushed to a level that they have no recollection of how they got there. And I think that's a
That's
major,
blinding rage.
yeah,
That's
you know what
what
I mean?
blinding
I
rage
think
is. Yeah.
and I think that's a major theme of the movie because it's the reason why in real life, where you have laws that grade on a certain scale, where there's manslaughter all the way up to,
Murder.
intentional
Yeah.
murder. Yeah, you know what I mean? So I'm not justifying it. By no means am I just, but I understand just how far people can get to these predicaments when others are manipulating them. Like you
Yeah.
have Teddy, the police officer. He's like, Teddy's not even my name. He tells him right
Yeah.
out the rip.
Well, yeah. Well, he knows it because he's like, I'm a John G. And then like
Yeah.
you can tell that
And
he's
you're like,
like,
wait,
wait a
wait,
second.
what?
And he's like, wait, what? Wait, hold on. No, actually call me Ted.
Yeah, he's like, my name is John Edward Gamble. My mother
Yeah.
calls me Teddy. And he's like, and
Yeah.
I don't like it. And then in that moment, you see the gears shifting and you see the thought
Yeah.
process. And for someone who's like, my wife called me Lenny. I hate Lenny. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's no fun when the rabbit's got the gun and the shoe is on the other foot now, is
How
it?
about that? How
And
about that?
it's just so crazy about how all these people, he's like, yeah, I wanted to see that smile again. So, we went off and we found other John G's. Like, wait, what?
Yeah.
You're helping someone
Yeah.
commit mass murder on
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, at that point, Teddy has essentially weaponized
yes,
Lenny. He's turned him into a weapon. Like he said, like, you're so good at killing because you're not a killer.
you're
Like
so
that's
good.
why you're good at it,
You're
right?
so good at killing that you're not a
Because you're
killer.
not a killer. You're not that person. Anyways,
Oof.
all right. So look, so I got some questions, which is actually going to touch into some of the things
Yeah.
that you were saying there. So, all right, first question I have for you is this, and it's something that I think I've always wondered about watching this movie. So, is Sammy Jenkins a real person?
I think I thought his name was Sammy Jenkins, Jenkins, but nonetheless, I
So
think
he's black, is what you're saying?
Well, see that's no, yo, dude. And the reason why I say that is, think about it. He's an empathetic character where things happen to him out of his control, right? So that could be an analogy for the system. The
Yeah,
man's
yeah,
got
yeah,
his foot
yeah,
on my neck. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
no one's gonna believe me. Everyone's out to get me. The dog ate my homework. No, it
yeah,
didn't. The teacher doesn't like me. All that. At the
yeah.
same time, more black people are prone to have diabetes, and if the wife is a diabetic, she's getting insulin shots, and he's administering to her because she can't do it her own. You know what I mean? You start putting it, you're
Yeah.
adding up the pieces. So I'm thinking like, all right, maybe it's a
Maybe
role
he is black.
reversal. Maybe he's
Maybe
a
it is.
black guy who exists where he wouldn't appear as sympathetic if he, puts him in that role or whatever have you. I know it sounds controversial, but there's a Marvel comic book, I forget the number, where the Punisher, after he fights Jigsaw, ends up getting injected with melanin and he becomes a black man. Yeah, think about
Okay.
that. So
Okay.
so the parallel is in Memento, and it may sound controversial, where there is a Sammy Jenkins, and Sammy Jenkins isn't the fat bald dude that you see.
Maybe he's a black
Maybe
guy.
he's a black guy who
That's
who the
that's a
cops.
hotter take than saying that he was a mass murderer, I think.
I'm just
But
saying, and
is he a real person though? Is he
yeah,
real, or
that's
is
what
he
I'm
a
saying.
fake, or is he a
He's a real dude who's black, who has a totally different existence, et cetera, et cetera. And he's, instead of being in a rehab center or whatever, he's in a psycho ward because
okay?
they don't believe
So
him.
so you're saying that, so for you, the story of Sammy is true.
Yeah, I
Like
believe it's
Sammy's
true.
a real person.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. All right. So we talked about this a little bit with the characters in the movie. So
Hmm.
let's say the main characters are Teddy or Lenny, Leonard, Teddy, and Natalie.
Okay.
Right. So I'm gonna ask you if you were gonna rate them in terms of who is the most villainous of the three. Right. It's a question, right? from worst, from least villainous to most. How would you rate them?
I'm going to throw you a curveball. I'm going to go with your scale. So, um, I'm going to say that there are 7 individuals that are the villainous. One,
Mm-hmm.
I think, number 7. So we're going to go from least to worst.
Okay.
Is Mark Boone's character, the clerk,
The hotel manager.
clerk.
The hotel manager. Yep.
And I think it's more like he's using the yuppie Nuremberg defense. Hey, I got a mortgage to pay. Hey, I went and I talked to my boss, and my boss
Okay.
said to charge you. So, all right. And he told him. He came clean. You know what I mean? Whether he's looking for absolution or whatever, he told him. I think the next one is the drug dealer, Dodd. You know what I mean? Like, he's a
Okay.
drug dealer. Drug dealers kill people, whether passive, aggressive, directly or indirectly. That's what they do. So when this guy, is coming around blazing at him in the chase scene, that's what they do. I think number 5 is Jimmy, the boyfriend. Like, he's a known
Jimmy
criminal.
G.
Yeah.
Yep. Jimmy G. Yep. Okay.
I got $200,000. Like, he's begging and pleading. But how did you get the $200,000? You're not doing it legally. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and you made a decision to deal with a drug dealer. Like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you're a criminal, dude. Like, and when you engage in crime, one of the potential, events that could transpire is death.
Okay.
I think the next one, number 4, is Natalie. And the reason why,
Okay. So you got Nelly at 4.
yeah,
Okay.
and
All right.
I think, yeah, she's out for vengeance because her loved one was killed, et cetera, et cetera. I get that. Totally understandable. But you're making a conscientious decision to make a person who has a known handicap your weapon in which you get your vengeance. Do it yourself
Mm-hmm.
then. If you're really about that life, go do it. Don't use him. He's an innocent participant. Like he tells her. Like, I don't know you. I don't know them.
Mm-hmm.
She made him drink spit, man. She
Yeah.
made him
Yeah.
drink
Well, she was
spit.
testing the boundaries of his memory
Who would
loss.
do that though, man? Like, think of
People that date drug dealers.
exactly. That's my point. Who would do that? People in the life. So I got her at number 4. Number 3, and this is a surprise here, but I'm gonna go with Lenny. I think that
Okay. 3 is Lenny. Okay.
like he said, he has a system. So he's aware of, these are the things. I have a folder. Police gave it to me. I've
Mm-hmm.
comprised all this. So why don't you give it to the police then? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then when he has the revelation that, no, you already solved this. He doesn't
Yeah.
accept it. He
Yeah.
comes up with a means like, nah, this can't be it. This is not enough. Oh, you're not satisfied. So now you have this insatiable hunger to go out and kill people because that's your means of being tethered to the reality.
And that only makes him number 3.
That only makes him number 3.
All right. All
Number
right.
two,
Who's 2 and 1?
number 2 is Teddy. Like, this guy is a cop. He's supposed to be the
Okay.
good guy. Like, no, you're more corrupt than anybody on the list because you're promoting a mass murderer. Like
Okay.
you're his sidekick. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, it's like Pinky and the Brain. You know what I mean? Like, all in one. So I won't beat that to death because we covered that. And then number one is the fragility of human existence. You know,
Wait, what character is that?
no,
what character?
It's personification, where
Okay.
they're both the protagonist and the antagonist, where this
Okay.
theme of lies, deception is a coping mechanism, is a means by which you say, hey, honey, do I look fat in this dress? No, you look great. Hey, is my cooking good? You like the way that this cake came out? Oh, it's the best. You know, like the lies we tell because we don't want to hurt our loved ones. Yet it's that same lie that has caused all these problems. And the problem was caused because he had this traumatic brain injury. He didn't ask for this. This has happened to him. And so if you want to call it fate or, the scales of
Okay.
justice, whatever have you, that thing, that entity is what caused all of this.
Okay. So that's the number 1 villain.
That's the number 1 for me.
Okay. All right. Next question is what happens to Lenny in the end? What do you think Lenny's life is like after this moment? So he's killed Teddy.
Yeah.
And then what do you think happens to him after that?
I think he tries to find another Teddy, someone to help him on his murder spree. And he already says, like, look, I'm just going to go looking for another John G, Jimmy G, whomever, JG, whatever. So whether it be JG Wentworth or, or James or Jimmy Garoppolo, he don't care. Like, he's just going to go out and find somebody with those initials, and then he'll make his own universe.
Yeah, it's interesting because then at the end you also realize how vague so much of it is. Like, fact 1, white male. Fact 2, John or Jimmy. Like, his facts are also so broad that
it could fit anybody.
So many people could fit into it, right?
So he can convince himself that your name's not CJ, it's James Garfield, and we're gonna get you.
Yeah, I wonder how he gets around the license plate, because I guess I don't know how license plates work. Do they make the same license plate in different states?
That's
the same
numbers? Question. I would think so. I mean, like, there's not infinite possibilities of sequences and everything.
That's a good one. All right. Yeah, that's what my questions are. What you got for me?
Oh man. So, should this movie be remade? I've read a few things where they've had the rights bought and sold.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah.
So I'm wondering, hey, since they're in the midst of doing this, let's go to someone who's an actual movie goer. What's their thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think so, man. I really hope that they don't try to remake this. Like, it's some things are just, they're good on their own, and it's like, I remember when we were talking about Gladiator 2, you said the thing about how there's like such a magic in the original creation of something. We were talking about Gladiator, the first one, and it's like when it's done so well, you can always do it. You can always make a part 2. You can always make an extension. You can always make a remake, but you don't know if it has to be there, right? It can be good, but some things are just, they're like, this is perfect. Like you don't need a Memento 2 or a prequel or a sequel or a remake. I hope they don't do it, because I think this is good as it is.
I dig it, man. So can we separate who we are from the stories we tell ourselves?
No, that's Lenny's problem right there, right? Like, he can't, and I think that's a burden that we all carry, because we all tell ourselves, like, I'm this kind of person, like, I do this, I don't do that, like, this is how I'm built, this is how I'm made, this is just who I am, I'm a work in progress. Like, all these things that people say that this becomes a part of our identity. And I think, like, particularly if you're not around or you don't have people in your life that can challenge that respectfully and from a place of caring, that can challenge you on, well, is that true? Because you said this and you did that.
Right.
I think absent of that, you very much so can create a reinforcing identity that might not be in your best interest.
That's tough right there. Wow. That's got me tough, man. Do Leonard Shelby's lies ultimately guide him to a deeper or more meaningful truth?
That's a good question. So the thing is like, I'm going to say with you, yes, because I think the moment where he decides you're a John G too,
Mm.
I'll just write down your license plate. It's like him saying, I'm committed to this lifestyle. The revenge, the seeking revenge, the trying to solve a mystery is what I've committed myself to. And now in this case, like even the stuff with his wife and like all that, that's a story. That's a story. But really who he is now is this hunter that's out there
Mm.
like hunting people. And like he even says at one point, without revenge, my life wouldn't have meaning, right? Because that's where it is. Like that's who he's become. And I think in that moment when you see that, that's when you realize like that's who he really is. And the crazy part is he won't even remember that
No.
that's who he really is,
Wha-
but that's what he's really become.
Wow. And that is crazy. That is madness.
Yeah,
All right.
because like most of the time, like when you enter your villain era, you know that you're a
Villain
villain,
there.
right? He doesn't even know it.
When you
He's in that
enter
space.
your villain
He
era.
don't even know it, man. He won't even remember that he's the villain. Like he's
Oh,
still thinks he's the hero
wow. So he's reliving his origin story and doesn't
all
even.
the time. Right, all
Wow.
the time,
That
man.
is crazy. Oh, man. All right. So this movie does a great job of having different individuals be the gatekeeper, if you will, of truth,
Mm-hmm.
certain events of what happens and how it happens. Um, with that being said, can the authority of truth also be untrustworthy?
Yeah. Okay. I get that. Yes. All right. So like that's a good question there. And it's funny because like it's kind of like in that Teddy character
Hmm.
where it's like he's telling him things that are true,
Hmm.
but you don't trust Teddy. And then you have the reinforcing of don't believe Teddy's lies,
Right.
right? And then you also have like Natalie's character where he originally writes down don't trust her, then crosses it out and then says, she will help you because she's lost someone. I think that it's like that expression, a broken clock is right twice a day.
Yeah.
Like even a broken clock is work twice is right twice a day. There's always some truth in every lie, and sometimes people are telling you the truth even when it's not in your best interest,
Mm.
right? And even Teddy, when Teddy tells Lenny like all the stuff that really happened, it's not that he's really trying to help him. It's that he's letting him know how like fragile his reality
Yeah.
actually is, right? But it's the truth. But because it's coming from Teddy, you don't believe it. Sometimes people are telling you the truth. You don't want to accept it
Mm.
because it's not coming from the person you want in the form that you want it,
Yeah.
but it's the truth, right? So I think, like, to answer your question, yeah, sometimes the gatekeepers of truth are generally trustworthy, and there's times where they're telling you the exact truth of how things are.
I dig it, man. Wow. That's tough right there.
So that's where we are, man. Anything else? That's it.
No, that's it for my questions, man.
That's it, man. All right, look. So popcorn wise, man, yo, no Barry,
Nah,
no
you can't bury
no
no
surprise here.
surprises.
Yeah, no, I'm giving this 5 boxes, man. This is a great movie. It was a joy to watch again.
Yeah, I'm with CJ on this, man. 5 popcorns, high premium quality gourmet popcorn.
There it
Um,
is.
I can't get over the fact that the intricacies are just so deep that you could spend a lifetime just dissecting this movie. I mean,
Yeah.
from the choices of the setting to
Hmm.
the depiction of his wife underneath the shower curtain in the bathroom. Like, how did you not know any of this was going on? And then
Yeah.
to be awakened by this, like, what is the sensations that would go on through your mind? Like, how did this person get in? Why did they pick my house? Why is this happening to me? Like, just all of those questions. Um, where's the family at? Does she not have, a mother, father, brother, sister, cousin, no one else? You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
That's
Like,
a good question. Yeah. It's a
just
good question.
all
Yeah.
the things that go into her job. What does she do? Her profession. You know what I mean? Maybe like, so maybe that is the reason why they feel compelled to make a remake and maybe put a couple of spins and twists in here. Who knows? But my
Yeah.
point is this movie does a great job of like not only giving you a very straight upfront story, but allows you to use your creativity and your imagination to fill in the blanks with some of the things that are intentionally left to the reader's imagination. I mean,
Yeah,
excuse me, the movie goer's imagination. Just a great movie, man. Great movie.
absolutely, absolutely, man. What's the summary for it, man? How are we closing it out,
Yeah.
man?
So the artistic expression of the title, Memento, which originates from the Latin phrase meaning remember that you have to die,
Mm-hmm.
underscores the transient and ephemeral nature of memory and vengeance. As the plot unfolds, the line between truth and illusion blurs, leaving audiences question the reliability of Leonard's reality. The film challenges viewers to consider the implications of memory and identity wrapped in a maze of suspense and intrigue. Christopher Nolan masterfully crafts a narrative full of twists where the true enigma lies not in the discovery of the criminal, but in the exploration of a man grappling with his fragmented sense of self. The film's structure, mirroring Leonard's disoriented perception, immerses the audience in the disorienting experience of his condition. You have so much disorder and chaos amongst him, yet he's trying to find sanity. Ultimately, Memento is a thrilling cinematic exploration of the mind, memory, and the haunting persistence of the past.
There it is, man. There it is. Highly recommended. If it's
Definitely.
not something that you've seen, definitely check it out. You know, as you were saying, it's on Amazon Prime. If you got Prime, you watching it for free.
Yeah.
If not, it's like $3 or something like that. You know.
Yeah.
So, but it's definitely worth it to see it. We're gonna be back next week with another Christopher Nolan film. Another mind bender in many
Yeah.
ways. We'll be back with Inception. So
This is
if
like
you
one of
haven't
my
seen
favorite
that
movies,
one,
man. I'm telling you right
yeah,
now.
yeah, you haven't seen that one, you're playing yourself because that's another awesome film. We are doing a month of Christopher Nolan films. So just did Memento. We're gonna come back with Inception, and we got two more after that. Once again, too, we are also doing a raffle.
Yep.
So for anyone that subscribes to the show to enter the raffle, you just needed to subscribe between January 5th and January 31st. We just need you to subscribe and like one of our videos. We will put you into a raffle. And if you win, you will have the opportunity to get a free photo shoot done by a supporter of the show, Mr. Cassim George,
Shout
who you
out to
can
him.
find him on Instagram at KIG Photos. You can check out his work, get an idea of what you might be in for. Other than that, the Sticky Floors podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. We are on Apple Podcasts. We are on Spotify Podcasts. We're on YouTube, where we always want you to like, subscribe, and share. Even if you don't get the free photo shoot, still do it anyway. And we will see you next time. Peace.